So this is for the opening, and warm welcome to you, and I hope that you will enjoy this time with us, and I open the court for you.
Thank you. I hope you can all hear me, and I hope you're all doing well in this kind of weird time where we can't get in the gym, but we can at least talk about it. As Tim said, I actually do not represent the federation, or I do not work for the federation. I represent them today, which also means that part of what I'm talking about is the federation. So if some of the slides look really bad, it's because the federation made them. And of course, the other ones are mine. But I'll go ahead and start. I will start by, here we go. And I gotta share this. Yeah. And I come from this organization called Børnebasket-Fonden, which is the Children's Basketball Foundation of Denmark. I will explain later what that is and how it works. Just gotta see, I gotta present, I gotta go. Is it on now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Still not in there.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. I had too much on my screen, I guess. Well, to begin with, I'd like to leave this comment that I usually start with, because in reality, this is all about the children having fun playing the game we all love. When we're done, we can boil it down to this. This is why I go to the gym. I play basketball myself. I actually still play. And I go to work and I coach because I want to pass on the love I have for the game to the kids that play. We'll get back to this. So these are the kids. Some of the kids that we coach, these are the kids that it's all about. To go through this, I will tell a very little bit about myself. I try to keep that very short. I think the other part are more interesting. Then for you to better understand what we're coming with, I'll give you a little background info on basketball in Denmark. What it looks like and how the democracy is. I will also give you then an introduction about mini basketball in Denmark. I think Denmark actually is a very progressive country when it comes to mini basketball. We have implemented a lot of different rules. We have a very extensive cooperation with the Italian Basketball Federation, trying to change the way we do mini basketball. Then I will tell you about Børnebasket-Fonden, which is my organization, or the organization I work for. I founded myself, which is the Children's Basketball Foundation. We work to promote the game of basketball, to get more kids to play. We work in partnership with the federation, but we are not the federation, and I'll get back to how this works. And in the end, I'll give you a tale of two clubs, two different cases from Danish Minibasketball's recent success. Denmark has had a very steep growth in participation in the last 6-7 years in mini basketball. We're not so many, so maybe that's why it's easier to get high percentages on your participation, but nevertheless, it's been a success. And then there's questions, and I think you can feel free to ask questions during the whole presentation, and then Tim will pass them on. And I mean, if there's any questions, feel free, and then we'll see when they'll be passed on to me. Yep. So a very little short bit about myself and my basketball background. I'm 43 years old. I played basketball for 31 years. I am still an active player. I mean, I guess right now nobody's active. We're all at home, but I still play. And luckily I play on a team with a lot of young guys that can run. So I do not have to run. And I have 3 kids that play. All my 3 kids play. And I told them, you can play any sport you like, but if it's not basketball, you have to drive yourself. And for now, this tactic has worked. So they are still all playing. I coached my first team when I was 14 years old. And from the first moment I did it, I loved it. And I've been coaching on the side almost ever since. Right now, I work as the managing director of Børnebaskefonden, which is a non-profit foundation that works to promote basketball. I help manage Denmark's largest club, which is Falcon. I'm not on the board, but I'm responsible for the coaches. I coach 3 youth teams, some U9 boys, some U10 girls, and some U12 boys. So while they're still small and want to learn, and while they still listen to what you say, and then I pass them on to someone else who can get a bit more rough with them. I also commentate NBA on Danish television, which is a totally different thing than coaching U9 girls. But so what gives me energy is this, to be in the gym, to try to help these kids. And if you look at this picture, there's actually at least 5 out of 7 that is listening, and only 2 that look very skeptical. So that must be a success. Basketball in Denmark, just some background info. We will just touch briefly on the structure of basketball in Denmark, so it will help you get an understanding of what the things we have to discuss later. A little bit of the demographics of Danish basketball, a little bit about the cooperative way, how the Danish Basketball Federation uses partnerships, I think more than most other federations in Europe, and at least more than any other federation, sports federation in Denmark. They used external partners to run part of their business. And then about the growth and participation, what we have now is what in Denmark has been named the golden age of mini basketball for Denmark, just because we've had a lot of growth in the participation. So the structure of basketball in Denmark, there is one federation, and that might to you not sound very special, but I just did a webinar for the Filipino basketball people, and they had 3 different federations that didn't work together. So I'm just, to be sure, I will say we only also have 1 federation. We have no regional federations, so it's 1 federation for all of Denmark. There's no local regions that can take their own decisions. Denmark has approximately 125 basketball clubs, probably a little more now, but for the official numbers, 125. And we have approximately 16,000 active players. So it's a small country. Out of the 16,000 players, 37% of them are 12 years or younger, which means we have a very young profile of players. We have organized tournament structures from U7 to senior levels. So you can play tournaments in Denmark from your U7. We do not have a lot of U7 teams. We have a lot of U8 and U9 teams. But for tournament structure, it is possible to play federation tournaments from U7. Our country is primarily volunteer coaching and volunteer administration of clubs. Not a lot of paid people in these 125 clubs, only in the large clubs. Yeah, that was a little bit about how Danish basketball is structured. If we want to look into the demographics of the Danish basketball, as I said, 16,000 players. Just above 50% of these 16,000 people play in the Copenhagen area, which means that basketball is centralized, at least youth basketball is centralized very largely around Copenhagen. If you look at the east and the western part of the country, 70% plays on Sjælland, which is the eastern part, and 30% play in the rest of the country. Basketball is primarily a sport played in the larger cities. If you live in a small city in Denmark, you play handball, do gymnastics, play badminton or swimming, or of course football, but that's a given. Most of the clubs outside of Copenhagen are located in this area in Jylland. So there's a lot of dark spots of Danish basketball, a lot of places where we can go if we want to grow, but we have to build a culture if we want to go there. One curious thing though is that there's no clubs in the top men's league which are situated in Copenhagen. So all the top clubs are situated out in the country, and all the youth players are in Copenhagen, or not all of them, but most of them. So, and why that is, that's probably a money thing. I don't interfere with that. I'm not playing anymore. So on that level. So the cooperative way, the Danish Basketball Federation has chosen, because it's a small federation and they really like to try to get a lot of work done, like most other people, they have chosen to do different partnerships. So some parts of the federation actually works externally. The first major partnership they have is with DGI, which is a national sports association. They do not run they do not run any national tournaments, but they help administrate and do education for all national federations. And in the basketball case, they run all administration of the courses, like the course you are taking now, would be handled by DGI. They do all education materials for basketball. So they were the ones that translated this huge Italian mini basketball book. When we wanted to implement Italian mini basketball concepts, we asked DGI to help us translate the book, and they raised the money. And they provide a lot of content for non-competitive basketball projects, which means anything that do not include the normal national competition. So they handle a lot of assignments for the federation. Then we have a street ball organization called Game, which handles all 3-on-3 activity, both FIBA challenges, national championships, and all 3-on-3 activities for kids. They have offices in many cities in Denmark. They also do football, street football, and street dance. But they have you can say, this companionship with the federation. So everything they do is federation certified and vice versa, which means there's a pretty extensive 3-on-3 program running in Denmark, which is run by someone else than the federation. And the last of the major corporations is with Børnebasket-Fonden, which is my organization. And we handle all activities to promote participation levels for kids, which means we do all school activities. We do a very large camp program, and we're responsible for non-competitive youth development projects, which means we got girl projects to get more girls involved. We got the junior NBA. We got all kinds of things that we run outside of the federation, but we run it in partnership with the federation. So on the youth side, the federation mostly runs the tournament, and that's about it. The rest is either with us, with Game, or with DGI. If we look a little bit on growth, I'll go through this fastly. It's a lot of weird graphs. But the Danish Basketball Federation has strategically focused on the segment of under 12. And they've done this in cooperation with us. We started this cooperation in 2013. At that point, there was 10,800 basketball players in Denmark. And in 2019, there was 15,300. And in 2020, I think we will be up maybe 1,500 more, which means that we are now larger than volleyball, which is very important for the federation. They have also focused on making the bigger clubs even bigger to try to get some very strong clubs, especially in Copenhagen. And they have focused on getting the numbers of youth teams to increase. Here you see the different age groups of girls and boys, and the two columns on the left, which is here and here, of girls and boys under 12. And as you can see, for the past 7 years, it's gone only one way. Participation is up 92% for the U12 segment. And you can also see that for the U14 or U13 to 18 segment, which is the segments that we count in Denmark, the participation is also rising fast now, but it's a little delayed because all the kids that are young, they have to get older to get in this system. And if you took the numbers from before 2013, there had been a long period of declining numbers. So we are very happy that basketball is growing. As you can see here, it also has an effect on the number of teams participating. Since 2013, we now have 56.5% more teams participating in the youth tournaments in Denmark after they had been dropping for many years. This is a little complicated graph of teams enrolled in tournaments. I'll give you the presentation afterwards. If you want to nerd into this, you can do it. And this is a look at the clubs, looking only at the U12 segment, and you can see some clubs, Falcon, which is the club I represent, is the blue line, have gone from 150 kids under 12 to almost 600 kids under 12 in the same club, which is very large for Danish standards, even larger than the largest handball clubs. We will also see some clubs that had 0 members 5 years ago and now have 350 members, and we'll get into that story later, but those are some of the clubs that we have started artificially and are now trying to work in to becoming, you could say, more normal clubs. Okay, this was the background for basketball in Denmark, just to give you a very quick view of where are we, what is basketball in Denmark. We could also mention that our men's national team just beat Lithuania and the Czech Republic. Unluckily, we have to beat them again to make it to the Euro Championship, which sounds unlikely, but it's been a great success for us so far. That's not why we're here, but it was just trying to mention. Mini basketball in Denmark. As I've said, mini basketball has been growing. While it's been growing, we've done a lot of things to try and to make mini basketball both more organized, but also to make mini basketball a better experience for the kids, to make more kids getting to play, and for that, and to make sure that when kids go and play games, they all get into the game, they all get a feeling of having competed against somebody else, and therefore we have tried to tweak both the tournament and the rules that we play by a little bit to try to achieve these goals. So we'll look at the specific mini basketball competition format and how it's organized in Denmark. We're going to speak a little bit about the specific mini basketball rules. Then I have a little bit about the Italian way. The Danish Federation made this, as I mentioned, this is structured partnership with the Italian Federation, trying to learn from a federation that has had a very scientific approach to mini basketball for a long time. And then I'll talk a little bit about the Nano and family basketball concepts, which are concepts for kids under 7. A lot of clubs in Denmark now are running basketball programs all the way down to U4 and U3. So basically almost baby basketball. I don't know if you can call it basketball, but it's run by basketball clubs. And I'll touch a little bit on this. So the mini basketball competition in Denmark. In Denmark, we have structured the mini basketball so that there's 2 different types of championships or tournaments, you could say, that you can play. One is the Grand Prix, which is what you would call an adaptive tournament structure, where you play every season 8-9 rounds, and in each round you go play this mini tournament with 3-4 teams. You play 3-4 games in a row. And then depending on how your results are, you are, for the next round of tournaments, moved up or moved down or stay at the same level. And this is done to try to adapt the level all the time so you get as many even games as possible. Because we in Denmark, as you might also have in Germany, has had trouble with games ending 120-5 or even worse. So in the Grand Prix, you all the time get moved up and down according to your strength. And when we sign up for the tournament, you try to tell them, for example, in U11, do you feel that you're a strong U11 team? Then we, in the beginning, put you in a strong group. And there's also always a lot of coaches that misjudge their teams by strength, or a lot of coaches that just want to win, and they put their very good team in the low division because they'll be sure to get a lot of wins. But then after the first tournament, we can look at the result and we can move them to a different division and try to match them all the time. It has been a great success, especially in U9 and U11. Then we have the championship, which is a classic tournament structure with I don't know how it's run in Germany, but this is how it's been run in Denmark for many years. We have different divisions in age groups, 6 to 8 teams. Twice a year, we promote and demote teams, and then we run the tournament again, and then there's a playoff in the end for each division, and somebody can win maybe a trophy, depending on how old they are. So in U7, U9, and U11, we run only the Grand Prix. You can only play the Grand Prix type tournament, and which means that there are no champions, of course. There are no winners and losers. You just get moved up and down in your level. And then, of course, if you can figure out that you're in the top group and you've won all your games, then maybe you can call yourself something if you like. But as a federation, there's no prizes, there's no tournaments, just a Grand Prix where you get out and play these games. And the reason also why we play these 8 and 9 small tournaments, which means that you only have to go out every 3 weeks during the season. So you have to activate a little less. You get the same amount of games, but you just play 3 games every 3rd weekend. U13. In the U13, we play either the Grand Prix or the regional championships. So you can choose as a club and as a team, do you want to play in the Grand Prix or do you want to play in the championship? Normally, if you have a group of 20, 25 kids, you play one team in each of the 2 tournaments. And then you move players around. And in U15, we then have a Grand Prix setup or a national championship where you play in divisions. And then in the end, some teams play for the national championship if they're in the top division. Yeah.
Okay, we have 2 questions to the last 2 parts. The first one is, you mentioned the ranking of the sports in Denmark and how important it is to pass volleyball. Of course, we know that Danish handball is big. So what is the gap between handball and basketball? How big is handball in comparison?
Handball is 90,000.
Okay.
It used to be 135,000, but they've lost a lot of members for the last 10 years. Some to basketball, not so many, but some, and just they've been stable for the last few years, but 90,000 is handball. I think football is 380,000. And then there's gymnastics and badminton and swimming.
Yeah, of course. Same here. And the second question, I'm not sure if it's one for you because it's on federation strategy. Why do you play U7, U9, U11? Do you only play these categories or do you play under 10, under 8, under 12 as well?
We play double year categories. So we play under 7 is actually under 6 and under 7. Under 9 is under 9 and under 8. And the reason why we have them in uneven numbers, we changed that 3 or 4 years ago, is because in Denmark, you finish 9th grade when you're 16, you have to change school to a different school system, pick a different type of school. And that coincided when you change from U16 to U18. So you're both changing schools and a lot of kids were going away and you were changing age groups, which meant that in the U18 age group, we lost a lot of kids because when they were changing school, they also lost interest or they had to change team or they couldn't go. And then when you lost all those kids, there were not a lot of kids left and teams closed down. Now in the U17, the U16 part of the U17 group is 9th graders. So they're all at home. They're all in the same school. They're all in the same class. Then you lose some of the players that are 2nd year players, but you don't lose the team. The other part of the reason was that in Denmark, and I'll get back to this right as we look at the rules, in Denmark, in what used to be the U12 and U10, which is now U11 and U9, we play on lower rims. 2 meters and 60 baskets, which meant that there was a lot of kids when they were in the U12 that could dunk. And technically it was not good for them. I mean, we all like to watch a dunk now and then, also in a youth game, but technically it was just not good for very tall 12-year-old kids to play on 260 rims, because what the fundamentals we taught them were not used correctly. So we wanted to change the point of time where you started to play on 3 meters and 5 or 10-foot rims. And therefore it coincided also that we moved that to U11, and then it made sense to make them U9, U11, U13, U15, and U17.
Okay, but this means that you have the same school system all over Denmark, because we have different systems in the 16 states.
Yeah, we have the same all over Denmark. Like we have one federation. We are not big enough to have different school systems.
Okay, that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's it in questions so far. Thank you.
Yes. So in Denmark, we have these specific mini basketball rules. They have been tweaked every year for the last 7 years, I think, and moved around a little bit. And we'll take a look at the specific rules in a moment, but we have implemented those rules to activate as many kids as possible, to promote development over winning. All kids, if possible, must play the same amount of quarters all the way to U15, which means that if you suit 10 kids, and we play 5 quarters, and I'll get back to that in mini basketball, then all kids have to play 2 quarters. No matter if they're good or bad or however you want to do it, all kids play 2 quarters. So if you have an uneven number of kids, the kid that plays the most quarters can only play 1 quarter more than the kid that plays the least amount of quarters. And this is just to promote that you play all the kids and that they're played evenly. And at the same time, if you look at the standings in the tournaments, you get a bonus for shooting 10 players or more. Because, as you know, there's a lot of coaches. We all want to win when we coach. And some coaches, they want to win at any price. And therefore, they would shoot only 6 players so they can play the good players more. Or 7 or 9. And therefore, we give a bonus if you shoot up 10 players or more, you will get an extra point in the standings. So you can actually get a decent season if you just beat a few teams and shoot 10 players every time. It's better than winning most of the games and shooting 7 players. So if we look at the rules for U9 and U11, we can see we play Grand Prix. We play on small courts. In U9, we play 3 versus 3. And in U11, we play 4 versus 4. We play 5 times 5 minutes. And we only score after each quarter, which means that you count score for 1 quarter. And then, like in tennis, if you win the quarter, you win the quarter and you get 1 point on the board. And then the score is reset for the next quarter. You play up and then you get 1 point. So it's kind of playing in sets. And we do this for several reasons. We do this one reason, because you can't run up the score. It feels different when you're a kid if you lose 5-0 or 3-2 than if you lose 120-5. So you can't run up the score. The other thing is, this gives the coaches that really want to play their good players and want to win, they have to play all the good players in the same quarter. What happens when you play all your good players in the same quarter? They have to pass to each other. They have to actually play together. Because here you just want to win 3 quarters if you want to win the game. So instead of playing 2 good players and 2 bad players, and the 2 bad players never touches the ball and never guards anybody that has the ball, then you can now actually develop your players better by playing 4 good players in 1 quarter and 4 less good players in another quarter, and then give some responsibility to the kids that usually do not touch the ball. This was before a big problem, because we played the kids evenly, but then they just, split up the good kids. Yeah, we play on 2 meter and 60 baskets with 5 size basketballs. we play with 3-pointers outside of the paint. So any shot taken outside of the paint is a 3-pointer. And we've done that because some say, why would we play 3-pointers in U9? And I admit, I also coach U9 boys. Sometimes it's not good if they make a 3-point shot because they will only shoot outside the paint for the rest of the game. But we've done it to promote that you don't just leave the big kids in the paint. You actually have to come out. You get a bonus for coming out on the floor and defending. For free throws, we play with free throws. We changed this some years ago. We played without free throws in the U9 and U11 and just gave a point if it was a shooting foul. Now we play free throws and you shoot from 3 meters or 2 steps in if you're U9, and you shoot from 4 meters or 1 step in if you're U11. Just to try to make them get used to shooting free throws. No zone defense is allowed. And there's a 20-point rule. If you are up by more than 20 points, it's mandatory half-court defense. You cannot play on the full court. Because if the team is winning by 20, it makes no sense to press the other team, at least get the feeling of getting the ball. They can pass 3-4 times to each other before they get stolen at half-court. Then there's a very special rule. Where did I go? I went too far here. There we go. There's a very special rule. If you look at steal the balls when in 2 hands, in U11 and U9, it's not allowed to take the ball out of 2 hands. So if I'm the offensive player and I'm holding the ball, you're not allowed to take the ball away from me. You can steal dribbles and you can steal passes, but you're not allowed to steal the ball if I'm holding it. And in U9, this is a great rule because they get time to think and they actually get to pass to each other. In U11, if it's a good team, it's a terrible rule because they're smart enough to use the fact that you can't steal the ball from them. But for most kids in these age groups, it's a super good rule. They will soon enough learn to be aggressive and yank the ball out of each other. Here they get a chance to actually play. And then the last thing in U9, there's no blocking shots, which means you can stand with your arms up, but you can't hit the ball away. And it's not a foul. You just get the ball back if the shot gets blocked. And that's the rule they've made. And we had it at older age groups before, and it didn't work very well, but it works actually very nice in U9 that you get a better flow of the game and you get more shots at the basket, which is what we want in order to develop the kids. Yeah. U13, here's a difference in the teams that play Grand Prix and the teams that play championships. So if you play in the Grand Prix, it's 4-on-4. If you play in the championship, it's 5-on-5. If you play in the Grand Prix, it's 5-on-5, or 5 times 5 minutes, and no substitutions. If you play in the regional championship, it's 5 times 8 minutes, and you can substitute in the last quarter. So you have to play everybody evenly, and then in the last quarter, it's possible to substitute. And this rule works actually really well, I think. I coach U13, and you get everybody involved, and in the end, you can try to mix them differently, or if the game is tight, you can coach a little differently. Still 3-pointers outside the paint, still only man-to-man, still 20-point rule, and also important in U13 in Denmark, no screens. No on-the-ball screens, no off-the-ball screens. And this is also done in order to try to promote more individual play, to promote more one-on-one defense, more skill for the players. They will soon enough learn to set screens and use pick and rolls. There's a lot of people that try to run handoffs all the time because it's not a screen, but it works like a screen. But screen's not allowed.
Yeah, we have defined that as a screen in our rules.
Yeah, and I think in U13, depending on the level of the game, the referee will also call if you use it too much. Yeah. And in the bottom, you can see it's actually possible in U13 Grand Prix to tie a game and not play overtime. And that's because when you play 3 games in a row, they have to get the games running at the same time. So therefore, they also play with ties. Then U15, we are almost at normal basketball. Everything's 5 versus 5. The time is a little different. You can substitute in the last quarter. Still no zone, but otherwise everything allowed like a normal FIBA game. Yeah. So these are the Danish rules and the way we have adapted them. I don't know if there's any questions to these rules or the effect they have.
There's only one. How do you? No, that's another one. How do you check or prove that each player plays the same amount of time? Do you have a certain score sheet?
Yeah, we have this as protocol. You could say this score sheet, and then you fill it in with beforehand with the number. Now it's electronic on mobile phone, but you fill it in and you keep what's it called? You keep score of who's on the floor in which periods. And actually this, it even counts if you're on the floor and you get injured, you still get an X in the box so you can't cheat by it. We also have problems with people that had kids lay down and say they were injured so they can move in the good players. You have to go to certain lengths, but we keep a score sheet. It's part of the protocol.
Okay. We have a different rule. If you have an injury or a kid that is not able to play the rest of the period, you're only allowed to substitute with a kid that has the smallest amount of playing time at that point of the game.
Okay.
Which usually is one of your less good players.
We also have a set of rules like this. I haven't brought it in the presentation for U5 and U7, where you get points for hitting the rim and all these things, but we don't right now have a structured tournament where a lot of teams play, so they're not interesting to discuss in this forum, I think.
Okay.
But,
in under 13, I'm not sure if it was on the slide. Under 13 is 4-on-4 or 5-on-5. There it is. It depends on the
level.
Category. Okay, on the level.
So if you play in the Grand Prix, which is where most teams play and which is less competitive, you could say, because they don't play for any trophies or anything. There you play 4-on-4 with a lot of the mini rules. And then if you want to play in the regional championship, then they try to, I think the federation would like to play with the Grand Prix rules in both categories, but the clubs did not want to. They wanted to, the competitive clubs, they really wanted to be as competitive as possible with as normal rules as possible.
Yeah, I had that conversation with Jesper.
Yeah, so this is a compromise, you could say.
Yeah.
But I think it's a well-working compromise in the U13. I coach U13 or U12, which is in this category, and I think it works pretty well.
Okay, so that's it regarding questions.
Okay. The Italian way. So why has the Danish Basketball Federation looked to Italy for inspiration and partnership? So this is the question I asked the federation, since I'm not the federation. And they looked there because they asked FIBA. We needed input. The Danish mini basketball was a little bit in crisis, both in 2013, both with participation numbers, but also with structuring how we did mini basketball. And therefore they asked FIBA, what can we do for inspiration? And they said, talk to the Italians. They've been very scientific about their approach to mini basketball. So in 2015, 16 it says here, but actually in 2014, they started to take contact to the Italian Federation and started to make some work. And in 2016, they sent the first coaches to Italy. Now we send coaches to Italy every year on these specially designed courses where they mix Danish and Italian mini basketball concepts. In 2017, we had the first clinic with Italian instructors in Copenhagen. We now have one or two clinics every year, like the clinic you have here, but with Italian instructors on mostly educating coaches on how to do drills and how to implement and what to focus on at different age groups. In 18, we sent a second study trip down there. And then we launched the official participation, which also included, as I showed before, this very thick mini basketball Bible from Italy, very, very scientific and very thorough piece of work with a lot of good stuff in there. We had it translated to Denmark and is now part of the mini coaches education if you take the higher levels of mini coaching in Denmark. And it's also coincided with Falcon Basketball, which is where I come, hiring Pepe Fusco, which was a guy who's been in the Italian mini basketball program for many years. He was hired by this club to go and develop the youth program for 2 years, and he's now back in Italy, but has been in Copenhagen working full time for 2 years, trying to implement. So here's a picture of the Danish, the chairman of the federation, and some of here's Mauricio, which is the Italian mini basketball guru in Denmark. And as I said, we looked to FIBA after they pointed out that Italians were mini basketball leaders. They have a very scientific and in-depth approach, and especially they have an approach where they try to keep all kids active in the gym. A lot of drills where it's all about moving kids at all times, where the kids make autonomous decisions. And in Denmark, we've been very focused on teaching fundamentals to very young kids for a very long time. You know, right-handed layups, left-handed layups, dribbles, and not focusing very much on making decisions, playing in speed, thinking about where am I according to the other kids? How do I react? If this kid react like this, how do I react? How do they react to me? We had none of that, not in our coaches program. We have none of that in the way we taught our kids basically anywhere. And therefore we looked to Italy for help or for inspiration, because we could see also when we played Spanish and Italian teams in tournaments, they played very different than we played. In a more adaptive way, and therefore we try to implement some of this. And we also looked at the way they structured their rules, and the rules you just saw, some of this is taken out of the Italian rules. Some of it is locally adapted, but also some of it comes from the Italian rules. And then there's a link to a video. I will pass on the presentation, and I can also pass on some more links to these videos. It's in Danish, so it's a little irrelevant, I think, here. As I said, we look to Italy because there's they have a concept with lots of movement and not a lot of standing in line. A completely different thought of focus and outcome of practicing. And one of the things I actually learned coaching with Pepe Fusco was that I coached these kids, and I had been very focused on teaching 9-year-old kids to do layups, and how many layups they made, and how the layup functionally worked. And Pepe was like, don't even worry about that. We can teach them that when they get older. When they make layups, worry about that they jump the right way, that they run the right way, that they make the layup when they're supposed to make the layup and not when they're supposed to pass the ball. So teach them decisions and teach them the right body mechanics instead of worrying about if the ball is going in the basket. And it was actually a very learningful experience. And I think also in the end, probably better for my kids. We'll see when they get older. And also collaborating the skills in game situations, something Danish coaches had also been very prone to do, was to make all these very specific layup or passing drills and not relating them to actual game situations, where a lot of stuff in the Italian approach is mixing games and drills, so it becomes more game-like in everything they do, even for little kids. That's something that we in Denmark usually implemented later when the kids got older. As part of this cooperation, we have these yearly offers to the coaches. There's these trips to Rome where you come and see Italian mini basket, do a clinic, get inspired by Italian coaches. And then, of course, as I said, they come to Denmark every year. And this is a slide from the Italian book on how they focus different things. I will not make myself very clever on this, but it's just they have very specific concepts all the way down to 5 to 6 year old kids. And in the book, there's very thorough walkthroughs of what you can do and what you should not do at which age groups. So
I'm really jealous that you have a Danish version of this book, and I'm really looking to have the English version this year. That Maurizio promised that we're gonna have an English version of the mini basketball book.
It's a super good book.
Yes.
It's a very academic book, but it's a super good book.
Yeah.
And it's been very valuable, I think, to many Danish coaches, just for inspiration anyway, for how to put your practice maybe in a different perspective that you otherwise would. And as I said, Pepe Fusco has been in Denmark, has really helped. This was also in my club, so I can speak firsthand. Has really helped develop the coaches and inspire many other clubs to maybe structure their mini basketball a little bit different. The last thing I will touch upon for the mini basketball concepts in Denmark is the nano and family basketball concepts. We have, as a federation, we have had a focus the last 5 years on nano, which is U7 and younger. And we also have this family basketball concept, which is the nano concept mixed with training for parents or involving parents in the training. There's different schools here. You can either do a training for little kids where the parents are involved all the time, or you could do a training for little kids where the parents are doing some training for themselves in the gym next to the kids. But the whole concept is to get more parents involved, to get more parents in the gym, to involve them with their kids, and also make it easier to actually run a U5 practice. And we have courses, federation courses for nano basketball. We have books on nano basketball. We have these interactive these web content concepts for family basketball, where you can where they have developed these different storytelling modes, where you over 6 to 8 practices tell a story that involves the kids, that today we go to the moon, or today we go to Africa, and then they have all these stories that build upon each other, that you activate the kids for 45 minutes with a ball while you tell a story and put them through drills. So these different concepts, in order to motivate the clubs to activate the kids younger. For this is a place in Danish sports where there's actually room for growth. I mean, handball has a concept, but not a very developed concept. Football doesn't have a fixed concept for this. Gymnastics does, but none of the racket sports have concepts like this. So there's a lot of kids available to join the sport in Denmark at this age group. And as it says here, we have this 90-page guide with adventures and gamification of basketball activities, trying to make it more fun for kids to participate at this age group. Yeah? Any questions before I go on to Børnebasket-fonden? You can feel free to ask about anything. No? I will continue.
Actually, I think this is the piece of jigsaw that is missing in our concept, the national concept for the 3 to 6 year olds. This is something that we do not have yet. So this is really, really interesting. And this is something that I've been discussing with Thomas, if it's possible to have a cooperation or at least an exchange or some clinics. So we hope to see something from this concept when the other Danish guys come to Germany in autumn to the clinic, or maybe in summer already to the clinic, to share some practical units with us. So we're really into seeing something of this concept for our coaches this year.
I think what works really well in Denmark, I mean, in the club where I'm involved, we have U4, U5, and U6 mix, and then we have a U7 boys and girls teams, and we have several teams in U4 and U5. And what works really well here is to send your coaches on these courses, and help the coaches get some tools on how to involve the parents. You know, how to involve the parents in the practice, because that's a big key at this age group. Because you cannot coach very many kids if you are alone with 4-year-old kids.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense. But and if the parents are sitting in the gym next to the practice, then the kids are running out of the practice all the time.
Yeah.
So getting the parents in the practice, in the drills, is actually very, very valuable. And that's something you as a coach sometimes have to learn, especially if you're a younger coach. How do I involve these parents? How do I demand from the parents that they actually, how do we make it part of the concept that you are always involved, that you never sit out, that this is not a time for cafe latte or reading newspapers or working on your computer. This is the time to actually play with your kid.
Yeah, it's not dropping the kids and getting a break.
No.
So we have 2 questions on this. How are these concepts promoted? And that's a good one. How do parents learn that basketball is the better sport for their kids than other sports?
Yeah, but I think to take the first question first, you know, by getting them in the gym. You know, basketball, as we all know, because we are here at this webinar, is a great sport, but we can't teach the parent that, especially in Denmark and maybe also Germany, which is not maybe primarily a basketball country. So we need to get them in a gym. And one of the ways to get them in a gym and also to demystify basketball is to get the kids when they're very young. And there's just not a lot of offers for 3 or 4 or 5-year-old kids other than football. And football, they have so many kids, they don't really have to think about what they're doing. So we can maybe create more quality than they can in football. So getting them in is the most important part. And what was the first question?
No, the other question is, do you think that this concept helps you to bring more adults in volunteering in the clubs? Do you get the parents more involved in basketball as well by getting them involved in their own children's practice?
For sure, I think, and I say that because I used the word demystify before, and that's because in Denmark, a lot of parents, from my own experience, but also when I talk to other coaches, a lot of parents are not, you know, they're a little bit scared of basketball because they didn't play basketball themselves. Everybody and their grandma in Denmark has played handball or football, so they're not as scared of stepping in as coaches or just a passing station or. And if we can get them get them involved when the kids are very young, then the parents, they grow up with their kids with basketball. So they learn when the kids learn. What is a dribble? What is a pass? It's not difficult. I've actually been practicing with my kid for the past 3 years. Now they're U7. Now it's okay. I can be the coach. This doesn't seem too hard. So we can see that a lot of the volunteer coaches we get in U8 and U9, they actually come from kids or come from a program, at least in my own club, from the program of U4, U5, and U6.
Okay, but the contents in these age groups are really focusing just playing a ball somehow, playing games, yeah. Basic motor skills. There's not real basketball content in that age group.
No, and I mean, as an example, I ran a practice. I mean, kids that age, they don't like change too much. So don't change too much. If it's fun, they want to come back and do the same fun. Yeah. So I ran a practice 3 years ago. I had a U6 team or U5 team. I can't remember anyway. And the practice was 20 minutes warm-ups where we, with the parents, did some basic dribbling, some taking the ball around the stomach, some laying on the floor, taking the ball around the body, standing up, clapping when you catch the ball. And we did the same warm-up every time. We did this part where the kids went into behind the baseline, and each kid picked an animal, and we tried to do that animal with a ball to half court and back, or to half court, and then somebody else picked an animal, and we all looked stupid, but we had fun. And after 20 minutes, we stopped. We had a water break, and then we set up this little course with different obstacles we had to crawl over or crawl under, and we had one little basket that you could shoot at as one of the stations. And there was like 10 different stations, and the kids helped put in the stations, and they helped clean them up again. And then 45 minutes has passed, and the next group come in. So it's not super difficult, really. And it's not real basketball. It's not like they ever play a game when they're U4. They just come and do basketball-like drills and do them with a basketball. So they feel they're going to basketball. And the parents, they get used to, this is the ball, this is the dribble, this is the rebound.
Okay. Last question is focusing on how the external organizations that are cooperating with the federation, how they are connected to the federation. I think you're going to mention this when you talk about your organization?
I will mention it when I talk about my organization.
Okay, so we postpone that question to that part.
Yeah. Okay.
Then we're fine with the questions. Thanks.
Of course. So the next part of this presentation is about Børnebaskefonden, or which is called in Denmark, in Danish, or the Children's Basketball Foundation. This is the organization that I'm working for, that I run, that I helped found 7 years ago. I'll talk a little bit about who we are, how we're structured, about promoting the sport in schools, which we do a lot of. The story about the basketball, I don't unluckily have one today, but I have pictures of it, and why this specific basketball is very important for us. The Børnebasket Club idea and how it has worked. We have started more than 30 clubs the last 4 or 5 years, and I'll tell you more about that. What other exciting projects that we do, and then a little bit about a philosophy that we help try to preach to the clubs, that in mini basketball, quantity equals quality. And I'll get back to that, and some of you will totally not agree with me, and some of you might, but that's also good. That's why we're here. So Børnebaskefonden, or the Children's Basketball Foundation, we are a non-profit independent foundation which was founded in early 2014. Our purpose is to move children through basketball, to create awareness of the basketball sport through dynamic and inclusive activities for children. Inclusive is really important here because we try to make basketball activities for all children. Also the children that are not in the basketball clubs, but who are in the schools, that we try to get into the basketball clubs. And you, as well as I, know that when you go out to a school class, there's certain kids that are very good at sports, and there's certain kids that are not good at sports. The kids that are good at sports, they usually already play football, handball, or they play basketball in the first place. So the kids that we're interested in is actually the kids that are maybe not as good at sports or not very interested at the moment. So therefore, it's important for me to underline or highlight the inclusive part, because we try to include everybody, because we need everybody to play basketball, if you ask us. And now the last part of our purpose is to manage and create cooperative projects through dynamic, where we facilitate that clubs, schools, foundations, companies, and other organizations of interest can work together to create basketball opportunities for kids. So every time we do a project, and we do many different projects, we try to ensure that we get as many parties involved as possible. The federation, the municipalities, the schools, some sponsors, maybe some other foundations that donate money to nonprofits. Everybody, the university, everybody that can make sense of the project has to be involved in the project. That has been our mantra so far. So Børnebaskefonden, who are we? We have 3 main focus areas or areas of business. And we are, as I said, an independent foundation, which means, like a normal NGO, which means that We don't get any money. We have to earn our money or get money from other foundations or do some work for the federation, so they will pay us a little bit. But we are externally financed. We don't get any government support. I'll get back to how we then are financed. But our three areas of business are: we do school projects. We do a lot of projects in the Danish schools every year. We do camps. And we do camps in cooperation with clubs. So we go to clubs that do not have the bandwidth or the desire to run camps in the vacations at their club. And then we offer them, if you provide the gym, then we will provide coaches and we'll provide a camp. And then we will, of course, take whatever income there is, but you will have an offer for everybody in your club. And then we start new clubs. So these are our three main focus areas. I will not be going in detail with camps. I think most of you know what that is. We do camps from primarily 7 to 11-year-old kids and 50 kids in the gym, and that's basically it. We have a concept for a three-day camp, and that's what we roll out in a segment where not a lot of clubs in Denmark like to do camps. They like to do camps for older people, or not older people, older kids. Our primary target for all our activities are kids from 6 to 12 years old. We've specialized in creating projects which facilitates a link between schools and clubs. So we try to move the kids in schools or other places in society and try to build a link to the club so we can move the kids into the club. How are we organized? We have a board, 9 handpicked board members. We spent a lot of time in the beginning when we created the foundation to pick members of the board that could help us provide opportunities for the organization, of course, but also, so we have some people that are on the board of big corporations. We have the chairman of the Danish Basketball Federation. We have we had a former mayor of Copenhagen. We have different people that can benefit the gym teachers of Denmark associations chairman or member of the board or something. So we have a lot of people that covers different angles of sports or kids movement in Denmark to try to help us run this organization. We have 5, actually now 6 full-time positions spread out on 9 people. And then we have more than 60 motivated coaches, which are paid coaches, paid by the hour, that we use. I think we actually have 70 now, that we use all over the country to run school projects and camps. So what is our relation to the National Federation? We have a great working relationship with the National Federation. They are our most important stakeholder, but I must underline, we are not the federation. And that's important for me, and it's actually now also important for the federation. Because when we work with the clubs that want to work. As a federation, and Tim will probably nod to this, you sometimes have to work with clubs. Because you work with one club, you have to work with all clubs. Also the clubs that might not really want to work or have expectations that we could not fulfill. So we have the luxury of not being public service. We can work with the clubs that want to work. So not being the federation allows us to stay more focused and flexible. We do not have to involve the political system of the federation when we take decisions on, for example, doing an Erasmus project, or if we want to do basketball mathematics for kids, we do not have to ask anybody. We just, we can ask our own board sometimes, but otherwise we do it. Because we are a focused organization, we focus only on kids, movement and basketball. We can attract and assemble a board of powerful people that would normally not be focused on mini basketball. They would normally not want to sit in the board of the federation, because then they also have to involve themselves in national teams or league decisions. Here, they only work on mini basketball and they only work on moving kids. It's easier for us to fundraise money effectively for external partners, because when they give money to us, they know the money can only go to more mini basketball, to moving more kids. And there's not a, even though it doesn't work like this, if you give money to the federation or to a regional federation, you can be a little bit in doubt if the money is also going to youth national team programs, or here you know the real deal. By law, we have to fulfill our purpose, so we have to put all the money back into mini basketball. And I said in the beginning, we work solemnly with the clubs that want to work. Yeah. So this is what it's all about. These are the kids. Some of them anyway. And so how have we done in numbers? Who are we in numbers? Through the last 6 years, we've had activities on 20% of all public schools in Denmark. There's 1,400 public schools in Denmark, and we've been on roughly 20% of them. In 2019, I didn't take the 2020 number for this because 2020 was a crazy year regarding what could you do. We were in just as many schools, but we did very few holiday camps. But in 2019, we did 30 different camps. We've given away more than 15,000 basketballs to schools we cooperate with, and I'll tell you the story about the ball and why it's very important. We have successfully started more than 30 new clubs. These clubs now represent more than 900 kids. And the players in the U12 segment age group has increased by 92% the 6 years we've existed. That's not only our fault or our, you could say, due to us, it's just as much due to the clubs that we work with. Due to their willingness to change, it's also due to the federation partnering up with us, letting us do as many things as we do, giving us the freedom to run a lot of different stuff in the youth segment. And it's not rocket science. We've gone to a lot of schools. We've given away a lot of basketballs. We've done a lot of 6-week projects. So if you show basketball to enough kids, kids will find interest in basketball. So in 2020, we had more than 15,000 different children through our basketball activities, mostly in schools. More than 135,000 times a child spent 1 hour of physical activity with us. We had our instructors running for more than 9,000 hours. And now it says 60 and 70. The last slide was maybe not totally. And in 2021, we'd expect these numbers to rise by 10%. And we don't know if that's going to be the truth or not, because 2021 starts up just as crazy as 2020 ended. But we'll see. Actually, in Denmark, we were in more schools during the Corona lockdown than we were before, because the schools had to teach the kids outdoors, half of them, and they were distanced and they didn't know how to do it. And then we were hired on several schools to come in and do ball activities with kids in the schoolyard while the teachers were teaching the other half of the kids. So we talked a little bit about camps. Now promoting basketball in schools, which is our main activity. We do school projects, which the municipalities and schools pay for. It's very important for us that the schools help finance the projects, because if the schools do not finance the projects, if it's a giveaway, then there's a lot more cancellations, and there's a lot less commitment from the teachers. And less committed teachers means less committed kids. Less committed kids means fewer kids into basketball and less fun in reality. So we know that if the school and the municipality is paying, the teachers will take the product seriously. They'll be more committed. And thereby we'll get a better product in the gym. So what is a school project for us? It's a 6-week project where we come 90 minutes per week. So 1 lesson per week. This could be in gym class. It could be, we actually don't care what subject we're in. We just care that we have a gym and we can play basketball with the kids. Then we have different themed, cross-subject themed topics such as basketball, mathematics that we can run, where we also put some math in. But in the standard project, we come in 90 minutes per week with one instructor per class per 25 kids, and we run a specially designed basketball program for the schools. This program, I'll get back to, but it's designed to include as many kids as possible, to make the kids familiar with basketball and feel safe with basketball, so we lower the barrier for participation. We have very little actual basketball where you play a game of basketball, because we know as soon as there's only one ball in the gym, is who has the ball. The good kids has the ball. And the good kids, they already play soccer or football or handball or badminton. So we want every kid to have a ball in his hand as much as possible. Therefore, we play very little of the finished game. We have one instructor per class, as I said. We pay our instructors 200 kroner per hour. It's approximately 26 euro, I think. All projects are run in school time between 8 and 3. We use the school to communicate to parents, because in Denmark, we cannot get direct communication to the parents, but the school will communicate for us. Before we start the project, we write a very nice email that says the next 6 weeks, we will put your kids through this program that does this and this. And by the way, if you want to play basketball, your local club is here. And when we're done, we also send out an email through the school that says these past 6 weeks, we've developed these competences with your kids. And by the way, if you want to play basketball, the local club is here. And yeah, you can see the price of a 6-week project. Usually these projects, as I said before, are paid partly by the school, partly by the municipality, and partly by maybe an external sponsor. So everybody gets a little bit of money out of their pocket to run these school projects. And then as I say, I'll get back to this, but we have these cross-subject themed projects where we run basketball and mathematics, or basketball and citizenship, or basketball and street culture for different segments of the school. So as I said before, the content of the school is every child has a ball. And as I said, super important, keeps the kids active the most time. It makes for activities that keeps them motivated, and it lowers the bar for participation, because when we've done 6 times 90 minutes with these kids and they've had a ball in their hand for at least 75 out of those 90 minutes every time, when they're done with us, they feel like they know basketball. They feel like, okay, I know what a dribble is. I know what a rebound is. I've actually touched the ball a lot, so I'm not scared of the ball. And this helps when they have to come down and start in the club, because one of the most important things, at least in Denmark, if you look at all the studies, is one of the things that make kids stop before they even started almost, is they come down to the gym and they feel that they're behind. They feel that they don't know the language. They don't have the basketball shirt. They have the wrong shoes. But most of all, they don't know what the coach is talking about. The coach is a nice guy, but he says all these words that I don't understand. Or she, if it's a woman, you know, all these things. He can be the nicest guy, but if I have no idea what he's talking about and I don't feel comfortable in what I'm doing with the other kids, then I might stop after 2 times. And the rate of kids that stays in the game is a lot higher if they've had these experiences by actually touching a basketball before, knowing what a dribble is, knowing what a shot is, knowing what a pass is. So we focused on drills and games that keep all kids active. We spend very little time playing the real game of basketball. And the instructors that we send out, we've had a lot of discussions with the sports organizations in Denmark, who to send out when we talk about doing sports in school. And our philosophy has been very different than theirs. We say we can send out basically anybody, because what's the most important part of teaching kids in school, if you want to teach them a sport? The most important part is that the instructor wants to be there, that they want to be present. So the most important skill that our coaches have when we hire coaches is that we can feel that they really want to be there. Because if you send a very educated basket league coach into a 4th grade, there's maybe one kid he wants to work with, and there's maybe 2 kids that want to work with him. And then the basketball class is already not very inspiring. So it doesn't really matter. We even have handball players. And I say even handball players, because for basketball players in Denmark, that's as low as we go, is to hire somebody from handball. But we send people out who want to be there. And then we use the 10% expert rule. I used to, before I did this job full time, I was in the power plant business as an engineer. And a guy from the Certification Bureau of Denmark once told me, you need to know 10% more to be an expert. So we carry this rule and we tell our coaches, as long as you know 10% more than the gym teacher, you're an expert. And we want to send experts who really want to be there. And if you don't need to know 10% more about basketball than the average Danish gym teacher, you don't need to know very much. And also, we can teach you what you need to know in a very short course. We have this book. It's not as thick as the Italian book, but we're getting there. That teaches school basketball. We have programs in this book. So when we hire you as an instructor, we run this book through with you and tell you, not the whole book, but the important parts, and tell you, you put a program together like this, and you want to be there, and you structure it like this, you are an expert. Because now for sure you know 10% more than the teacher, at least in what we have to do. We also involve all the teachers because we want the teachers to take ownership, and we want the teachers to, we tell them you do not have to prepare anything, you have to follow the coach, but you are involved as an instructor while we are there.
So Jens, we have more questions coming in.
And yeah. I think we give the people and yourself a break for a minute.
Yeah.
We have 5 or 6 questions coming up, and you have some part in the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we stop the recording for a minute and take a 5-minute break, so everybody can. We can go through the question first, or do you want to finish this part first?
Bring them on. Bring them on.
Okay. There are two questions to the parts before. So, do you think that only the mindset and your activities are responsible for the growth, or do you think that the rules have an influence on the growth of the mini basketball numbers as well?
I think you can say it like this. I think the rules does not impact the participation numbers, but it impacts how many we can keep in the game.
Okay.
We lose fewer kids, but we don't recruit any kids because of the rules. We need to get the kids in the gym, but when the kids experience, and we get a lot of feedback from parents, when the parents that tell us, yeah, my kid went to handball, but he never touched the ball, or he never made the floor, or he didn't get in the game, or they never gave him the ball. Yeah. Where here they come out and they get a totally different approach, and especially in the very young age groups, they get a totally different approach, because a lot of times kids don't know who won and who lost, and it's more about participation, So I think, to answer the question, yes, it helps, or no, it doesn't help raise participation, but it helps keep the kids in the clubs or in the sport. So in that way, it also helps.
Yeah, perfect. You've been speaking about the mindset and asking the Italians for inspiration. Did you have any programs together with the federation to spread the idea or to spread the new concept, to get more people involved? Is there any special campaign to promote the idea, to promote the new way?
The promotion of the Italian project has been only, you could say, the federation's job. We have not been, as an organization, been involved, but we have incorporated some of the Italian drills in our curriculum for the schools, and our part of this have been promoting to all the clubs, as I will also get back to. But we have a saying that in mini basketball, quantity is quality.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of coaches before with the clubs that we work with that says, we don't want so many kids because we want to improve the kids that we have. We want to make those kids good. And if we get too many kids, we can't make them as good technically as we'd like. And we're telling them we're never going to grow the game if this is the approach. For us, the approach is the biggest quality in mini basketball is having as many kids as you can put in the gym. And then these kids, they'll get good later, and they will also get good, but kids want to be where there's more kids, not necessarily where there's good kids. And therefore, we have helped the federation they have promoted a concept which helps include more kids, can help you include more kids in your practice and focus on different skills. And we have then, at the same time, pushed the clubs to take in more kids.
Okay. Short question, where do you recruit your coaches for your school programs?
Universities, teachers' educations, unemployed people within the basketball environment. We have a lot of clubs that have part-time coaches, or not a lot, but some that want some daytime work. And sometimes we advertise on different sites, you know, if relevant places. And we get instructors, not only from basketball, a lot of instructors from basketball, but also from other sports that are maybe studying to become a teacher or studying to become a kindergarten teacher or something, study sports that want some relevant work. And just again, don't worry too much about their basketball qualifications. Worry about if they want to be there, if they want to teach, if they want to involve kids, and then we can give them the rest.
Yeah. Okay. 3 questions on schools. How difficult or easy is it to access schools, to get access to the schools, to the directors?
I think that school directors are some of the most well-protected people in this world. Very difficult to get to. But I think, my best advice, if you want to get a hold of the school director, is not to call, but to show up. You know, show up, have some material, hand it over if you can. And then, of course, the first 5 is the hardest because school directors, they also talk to each other. You know, so when they know you're not running some crazy organization or that there's some quality in what you do, then they will also talk to each other. But it's difficult to get to them. But if your material is good, they look at a lot of bad material. So if you have a serious project, they will listen. And actually, it helps. We bring the ball every time, and for them to get, while we talk to them, for them to get a ball in their hand, you know, to feel what it's all about, that helps.
Okay. Second question. We've been talking about the school system, that you only have one school system. So there's school for every child from 8 to 3 in the afternoon.
Yeah, some kids get off a little earlier.
Okay, but
some maybe 30 minutes later, but in that span, there's basically school for every kid.
Okay. And last question, do you have any kind of school competition, school league or whatever? Do they play games or is it just practice?
It's just practice. It's just practice. We have the junior NBA, which is for 120 schools, and we run a lot more schools than 120. So we are not. They can sign up and play in the junior NBA once a year, and we use that as a product to try to sell school projects. You know.
Yeah, of course.
It's for 4th and 5th graders. Buy these classes for your 4th and 5th graders, and we'll include you in the junior NBA. So, yeah.
Okay, so that's it so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I'll run the story of the ball. It's a short story, but we found out quickly when we started to go into the schools that one of the biggest problems was that the balls in the Danish public schools was basically from when I was a kid. And I might look young, but you know, that means they're at least 30 years old. And what we also learned is that the balls are all size 7, because 30 years ago, you only played with size 7. So you come into the public school, they don't have enough balls. The balls they have are size 7. They don't bounce very well. they're slippery, and they're too heavy. And you have to run a class, you have to run a basketball class for second graders. This is not very good. So we've said, okay, for us to implement quality in this, we need to get the schools some new balls. So we went to a sponsor or to a big non-profit bank foundation, you know, where they give away CSR projects, and we applied them for 6,700 basketballs and said, we want you give us these basketballs, and then we give them away to schools who need basketballs while we do physical activity with the kids. And there's a lot of, and of course we put your logo on the ball, and the ball is here. So it's Nordea, the big bank in Scandinavia. And so Nordea Foundation gave us these balls. And every time we go to a school, we give the school 25 balls. So there's enough for a class. If we do 2 classes, they get 50 balls. So if we run 3 classes at the same time, we give them 75 balls. And then we tell them, you keep these balls so we can come back next year and do more basketball. If there's balls missing next year, we will give you some new balls. Because the best thing that can happen for us is that these balls get stolen. If they get stolen, it's because they get used. If they get used, there's kids playing basketball. So please steal our balls and we'll give you some new ones. And so we were supposed to hand out these 6,700 balls over 3 years, but after 2 years they were done. So we went back to Nordea and told them, please give us some more balls. Because it's been a great success, because before there was these heavy, slippery old balls. And you know what happens when the girl from the first grade gets this ball, we tell her to bounce it. It doesn't come back up. We tell her, okay, shoot at the rim. She shoots at the rim. She doesn't make it because the ball is too heavy. It's coming down. She can't catch because it's too slippery. She catches with her nose, and then we're done playing basketball. So therefore, that's basically the story we told Nordea, and they said, okay, we'll give you 10,000 new balls. And those balls we've been handing out to schools. And the good thing is now there's a ball for everybody, so everybody's included. Now the schools remember us because they remember the balls. And we're sure every time we come out that there's enough balls and that we can put quality in the education. So the ball has been super important for us. It's also now, it's our best promotion, because people, they don't necessarily know us by name, but they know us by the ball when we come out. Our partnership with Nordea is running out, or it just ran out. So we have, this summer we have to change to a different sponsor because they said we've given balls for 5 years, 6 years, and we support nonprofits, but we don't support them for 10 years in a row. So we're going to find a new sponsor. It's not going to be super difficult, I don't think. We've done a lot of other projects with balls like this. Yeah. Good. And now the last thing that we do, the last area of business that we have is starting up clubs. We don't do basketball activities or basketball projects in areas where there's no basketball club to pick up the kids if they want to play. So in the beginning, we were in trouble because there was a lot of schools, for example, in Copenhagen, that said, we would like to do basketball. And we're like, but there's no club in your area. It doesn't make sense for us to come and do basketball in your area. So we start clubs in areas where we do school projects, but where there are no local clubs. We provide the administrative setup and help raise the initial funding. We create a framework for the club and start it up with paid coaches and our administration. And then we have 3 strategies to exit out of the club. We have the assist, where we find local people and parents to run the club. We have the franchise, where we take another local club, for example, another club in Copenhagen, and tell them, we have 50 members over in this little club. Would you like them into your club? Then now you run the club. And the idea is, if you're in a neighborhood and there is no basketball club, we know that there is probably a basketball fanatic out there somewhere. There's just some reason why he hasn't started a club, because it's difficult to start up a club. And we try then to take all the difficult work, start the club, and then hope that the basketball fanatics of the area find us. And if not, we do the continuation. We continue to administrate and run the club the best we can. Yeah. So an example is, if this is a map of central Copenhagen, when we started this project, there was these 5 clubs in Copenhagen, and Copenhagen is a city with 1.5 million people. So this is not a lot of basketball clubs for a lot of people. So we looked at this map and said, okay, what if we start clubs in these areas? We work with schools in these areas, let's start clubs in these areas. So we started up that project. Now we're then working on this project. We're not done, but we're working on this project, trying to cover the map of Copenhagen with basketball clubs, little basketball clubs. Some of them just have 1 or 2 teams. Some of them just have 25 members, but all of them play basketball locally in a local school, in a little gym. And then if they get really involved, sometimes they go to other existing clubs. Sometimes we group some of the clubs, for example, in the north part of the city. So they have, for the young age groups, they have each their own department. And when they get older, they're like bundled together in another club. Yeah. What other existing projects do we do, or exciting projects do we do? I told you, we do the junior NBA. And the junior NBA is not something that we make money on. We get the uniform sponsored. Some of them we get from the NBA. Some of them we get from a local sponsor. We have decided in Denmark, as we run the junior NBA here, that we want to run this league from the perspective, what would be the coolest we could do if we were 5th grade kids? And of course, the coolest you could do is to bring an actual NBA player. So we're the only junior NBA league outside of the US that brings an actual NBA player or an actual active NBA player, because the others, they bring ambassadors. And it's super expensive, and it might be stupid, but if you're a 5th grader, that's the coolest thing, you know. So Carl Anthony Towns on the picture here, he was in Denmark. And the year after we had Middleton, was to the left here. And last year, 2 years ago, we had nobody because it was canceled. We had Josh Richardson here. And the junior NBA is a school tournament. We play local or regional tournaments, and then we gather them for a finals event. And then the 3-4 days with the NBA players here, we of course make all kinds of events, camps and speeches and all kinds of stuff to try to help finance the fact that we have to pay a lot of money to bring the player in. We also tried with Nowitzki and Dennis Schroeder, but they didn't want to come to Denmark. So I don't know why. Yeah, we do Girl Scout Game, which is a girls recruitment concept where we try to create links between girls teams across the clubs that they play in, because we know that helps when in Denmark, girls' participation is a lot lower than boys' participation, which means that at a certain age there's very few girls that play, so we need to keep them in a game. We need them to know each other. Yeah, we do basketball mathematics, which is a school program where we mix basketball and mathematics. I could talk for hours about this. It's a super fun program where you do basketball just where you hide math inside the basketball. And we've done that with the university, and we had quite good results. We're releasing these articles actually this month on the university did them, so it's very scientific, but about the motivation of kids doing this program compared to normal basketball or normal mathematics. And they have quite good results. We also do a basketball and citizenship where we take 8th and 9th graders, and they give them, during the electives, they can elect this class. And then we give them a coaching degree. And then we also give them we have a foundation that supports giving them a little pocket money to be assistant coaches in the local club. We run this program, especially in areas with less fortunate kids or harder areas, and it has had good success. And the last thing we do, we have this shoe burst, where people can hand in their used shoes, and then we give them we have these sponsors that sell shoes that give them a gift certificate to get a discount on new shoes. And then we take these old shoes, we clean them, put them in boxes. And then as a club in Denmark, you can call us up and say, we have some kids that can't afford shoes, size 30, 43. And then we send them some shoes from this, given from other kids, you know. So it's a giveaway. It's not a moneymaker, or we just, and then once a year, we take all the shoes that we didn't get rid of to Danish kids and we send them to a project in Africa that we support. But it actually works quite well. And the important part of this project is that if you can't afford a shoe, at least when you get a shoe, you get to unbox it and feel that the feel is new. Yeah. And back to I think this is the last part of we just have one more part after this. The philosophy that we try to preach to the clubs in mini basketball: quantity equals quality, which means it's a quality in itself to put a lot of kids in the gym. If we want to grow the game, we got to put kids in the gym. So we got to try to push the clubs to get away from we only want 15 kids, because then we can win the championship in U13. We need them to take 50 kids, because if they take 50 kids, they will also be better in U15, maybe, instead of U13, because you can't beat, I mean, the chance that the good players are within 15 kids are a lot less than the chance that the good players are within 50 kids, if that's your purpose. Our purpose is not to find a good player. Our purpose is to move as many kids as possible, to get as many kids as possible in the sport. So for us, it's been a motto we try to preach to the clubs, that quantity equals quality. Then, of course, we know that if your gym is totally full and you're still trying to put kids in there, you have to push the limit for what is a full gym. But at some point, of course, you have to say, you have to go to the other club because we can't fit any more kids. But as a provocative statement, you know, it's about getting as many kids in the gym as possible. Then the last part here is the tale of two clubs, two cases from Danish Minibasketball success. The first is the Falcon story. Falcon is now the largest club in Denmark, 1,230 members, most of them kids, 600 of them are kids. Falcon we started a project in this club 7 years ago. My friend and I, we came to the club, and it was a club in totally disarray. They spent 70% of the money that they got from the youth fees on the men's team. And they didn't have youth teams in every age group. And I coached a U8 boys team and a U12 girls team. And we shared the jerseys. We shared the uniforms. We had to drive the uniforms from gym to gym because the club didn't have money to buy uniforms. Even though this club is one of the richer parts in Copenhagen. Then we tried to implement some of the things, like we said before. We tried to implement the quantity equals quality. We tried to implement, we do school projects in all the schools in Frederiksberg every year. We do camps every vacation. And this is, as you can see on the next slide, really helped. Now this slide is from 2018, but the participation is now 1,230. We started the project where the red line is, and this is how it went. And all we, in actuality, did was to change the club's focus and say, we spend 100% of the fees for the youth department in the youth department. We try to put as many kids in the gym as we can at all times. So for example, now we are the only youth department in Denmark with 3.5 full-time employees, because we spend all the money on trying to get more quality into the youth department. We have a focus area. It must be fun to play. We must make a community out of it to involve as many parents as possible. We must try to create a challenging environment for all level players in the youth department. On the men's side, we no longer have a league men's team. I play on the first team. I practice once a week. That says enough about our first team. But we now also will get a first division team, which is a second league for younger guys, because now we have actually a pool of talented players that want to play. And results are secondary for us. the important part is the kids have fun, that we get them in a gym. And as I tell the parents and of course that means we practice with more kids in the gym, and we can't necessarily provide 4 or 5 practices for you 15 boys. But we tell the parents we have quality coaches. We provide the players with as much gym time as we can, and the players, they don't get good at our practices. We teach them to do the right things in our practice, but we know the kids that get really good, they get good in between the practices anyway. So the kids that want to practice a lot, we try to get some outdoor time or some gym time where they can do extra practices, or we have partnerships with schools, special schools where they can practice in the morning. But in our club, we can only provide a certain amount of practices. And this has worked so far. So this was the story of one club who's been a part of the mini basket success, and has been a part of it because they have implemented school basketball, camps every vacation, and a focus on putting a lot of kids in the gym. The other club is a club that we started ourselves. It's one of the Burner Basket clubs. We went from nothing in 2015 to 350 kids in 2020, all under 12 or all under 13. This is one of the clubs we started, you could say artificially, founded by us, by Burner Basket Fund. It's in Copenhagen. It has 7 departments on local schools, all in different parts of the city. All the kids that play in these little clubs, they think they're in their own club. So they have an identity of, you can see Valby Vespas or Lundehus Lions or Vesterbro Vikings. But in actuality, the administration is just one club with different teams. But the teams, they think they have their own club, and the parents. So we found out that if you want to build a club like this in local areas, and then some of them we bring together at a later age, it's very important to build a club identity. So we've done that with all these clubs. We've had the kids help to pick what they wanted to be. The first team in the club, do you want to be a Viking? Do you want to be a Lion? Do you want to be... Some of them came up with some really weird things to be, but we have in another part of the city, we have Verbro earthquakes. And I don't know what a mascot for an earthquake looks like, but they're the earthquakes. It works. And this club is built in the same way. So we have done school basketball on a school where there was no basketball. We have then made an afternoon offer to come play basketball in the club. We've tried to build a bridge. We've gotten the first kids in, and then we built from there. So some of these departments, Lundehus Lions is brand new. They only have 15 kids. Vesterbro Vikings is 5 years old. They have 65 kids. Amager Gators has 50 kids. Valby Vespas is a new club. They have 25 kids. But together they become a lot of kids. There's more departments than this. So this was the story of how the mini basketball has evolved and what kind of different clubs evolved through the mini basketball in Denmark. And now there's only questions left.
Okay, first of all, thanks a million, and wow, I think that's a whole lot of information for everybody. And yeah, so if there are any questions, feel free to write on the chat. Otherwise, I definitely owe you a couple of beers when we meet next time. Which hopefully will be in preparing our Erasmus program to bring basketball, mathematics, and basketball and citizenship to German schools as well. Mm-hmm. And I think there are some really great inspirations that are even applicable to our program. But of course, there's a different structure regarding the ability of entering schools in Germany, but the basic ideas are quite similar. This is why we have been so close with the Danish Federation. The idea of getting more children involved, of getting more parents involved, and to grow mini basketball in numbers is exactly the way that we want to have for our mini basketball. So if there are no further questions now, I think we can share the presentation afterwards, as you said.
Yeah.
So we make it a PDF and we'll email it to everybody.
And if anybody wants some additional information on anything, just yes, they can ask you and send it to me. We can provide it.
Yeah, I think I will just add your business contact maybe on the presentation at the end. so people can reach you via email or find your website and then follow your projects or have a closer look on several projects.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So no further questions. Okay, we turn back to German. Also auch euch. Die Bücher sind tatsächlich gerade alle noch auf Dänisch, um die letzte Frage zu beantworten. Das ist einer der Gründe für dieses EU-Programm. Wir möchten gerne auch Materialien gemeinsam auf Englisch und dann auch auf Deutsch entwickeln mit demselben Zugang, speziell halt im Schulbasketball. Werden wir versuchen, mit Hilfe der Europäischen Union gemeinsam in den nächsten 3 Jahren da was zu machen. Den Antrag stellen wir jetzt im April und hoffen dann im September Klarheit zu haben, ob das funktioniert hat. Euch vielen Dank für die Geduld und das Durchhaltevermögen. Ich hoffe, ihr konntet ein bisschen mitnehmen. Eure E-Mail-Adressen haben wir aus der Registrierung. Das heißt, ihr bekommt die Präsentation dann automatisch von uns zugemailt. Vielen Dank für die Aufmerksamkeit. Andi wird dem Jahrgang jetzt kurz mitteilen, wann wir weitermachen. Marius braucht vielleicht auch noch eine kurze Pause, bevor er gleich loslegt in kleiner Runde. Vielen Dank an euch alle. Thanks a million to you, Jens. And
thank you.
I hope to see you personally again, someone this year, when all this weird COVID stuff is over, or at least under control, that we are able to meet personally in Copenhagen or somewhere in Germany or with FIBA, however.
Of course.
Meet each other somewhere sometime. Okay. Oh, well, there's one last question that I've missed. The ratio boys and girls.
What is the?
Yeah, the ratio in Denmark is 65% boys and 35% girls.
Okay, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jens, also from me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, that's amazing.